I'm Margaux and I'm the Managing Director here at Australian Museum of Design, and I'd like to introduce Christine. Christine, could you let us know how you came about finding us here at the Australian Museum of Design and tell us a little bit about your history?
So I was, first of all, very much involved in the design studio, doing in-house designs that would be mass-produced. There was also the handprint aspect of the design studio, which was signature handprints. And another aspect of that job in the design studio was the involvement with the National Trust. So different architects that would come to the studio, they would want to reproduce some original wallpapers that they'd found when they were dismantling an old building. They would find it under wooden panels. I think some fragments were the result of floods. So these tiny fragments of wallpaper, we had to then reconstruct what we considered was the original design as best as we could and try and match up the colors as best we could. But that, to me, that was my biggest joy, I think, doing the restorative work.
So it's interesting. We posted a design called Tropical Butterflies on our social post this week. And when you and I had spoken before, you recognised that I had written on there that pieces were missing and sort of broken. And that's exactly what you're talking about there as well, finding pieces like that and then using the restorative process to recreate that original.
Obviously, sometimes you have to use creative license because you don't know exactly what was there, but you have to put something in that will fit, make it repeat, and, you know, balance the whole design out, really.
Yeah. So in saying that also, we only launched our activity a week ago. And I wondered what you would have thought when you first came across hearing the company and what we were doing, and obviously understanding your history. Talk us into a bit about that.
Well, I suppose it came about just per chance. I was on a road trip down to Girraween National Park, and I passed a signpost which said Cuminia. So it kind of rang a bell with me because 40 years previous, some restorative work for Bellevue House or Bellevue Homestead, which was in the town of Cuminia. So I wandered off down this track and found the homestead and said, you know, I did some work for this homestead some 40 years ago, and I was just wondering if the wallpaper was still on the walls, or she invited me in, and I could see as we walked into the lounge there was a frieze which I recognized.
Yep.
And then we walked into the bedroom and there was a room full of a lovely design that I was so familiar with, and the frieze that I had personally tackled in a restorative way from, you know, 40 years ago. So I was absolutely thrilled about seeing this.
Yeah.
And it's almost like I hadn't seen it in situ before. And that's oftentimes the case if, you know, especially, you know, I lived in Sydney at that time and this was Queensland. So I never got to see that in you know, hung on the wall. So 40 years later, I get to see my work.
When I came to the studio and I shared the fact that we had spoken with the crew here, we quickly ran out the back and had a look at the restorative book that we have that you spoke about.
Yeah.
That we actually have the photos from 1890 right there, and then you're obviously hand recreation of them in the 80s. So it's come the whole full circle again, which is fantastic, isn't it? It's it gives you goosebumps, doesn't it?
Me too.